Hi guys. Before the video starts, it would really make my day if you were to give it a like and subscribe. Enjoy the video.
Redditors who were once very rich and are now very poor. What was the hardest adjustment to your life? My income is currently about 15% of what it was for many years. I'm still doing okay, and my current expenses are also a fraction of what they once were. But the biggest adjustment has been my use of credit. When money was rolling in, I had no fear of debt and used it extensively. That puts everything you want to do or have within reach. I could take an impulsive trip to another continent if I wanted to, not because my wallet was full of money, but because there was no fear of putting $10,000 on a credit card. Now I'm nothing like that. I've learned how hard those debts are to pay down if you don't have good cash flow. Credit is now for extreme emergencies only. I still have everything I need, but I can no longer have everything I want. Not me, but I worked with a lady who married down from her family line, rejecting their money and going off to have kids and live in a townhouse in a normal part of town. She told me once that the hardest adjustment was realizing how little her parents thought she could accomplish on her own. They tried to convince her she was incapable of tasks like cleaning her own house or being the primary caretaker of her kids. She built up a lot of self-esteem in the time I knew her as she learned basic life skills that all us poor people know how to do. Definitely was never really rich, but I would consider my family upper middle class. I had a great childhood. Mom, dad, brother, and me. We went on vacation once a year to the beach. Parents never hesitated to buy my brother and I things. I was very fortunate until I turned about 14. My mother developed lupus and got very ill. Along with having diabetes, she had to get 4 toes amputated, gangrene, 2 toes on each foot. I knew then my life was different. Mom couldn't work anymore and dad worked all the time, really pulling through for the family. He was simply amazing. The way he took charge out of the situation, took care of my mom like a fucking queen. Amazing. When I was 16, I lost my dad to a car accident very abruptly. He left for work one morning and never came back. Only thing that did were 2 police officers knocking down our door telling us my dad is dead. When my mom got sick, I knew things would be different, but this just really topped it for me. We literally had no idea what to do. My dad failed to get life insurance, so he left us with nothing to work with except the money that was already in the bank. Considering my mom can't work and I'm still in high school and my brother is about to graduate high school, it was a pretty helpless situation. I got a job and my license right away and started working. Brother moved to college, about 45 minutes away. During this time our house was being foreclosed on because we just simply couldn't afford it. The mortgage company sent us an eviction notice to get out of the house in 14 days. We had to find somewhere to live in 14 days. Holy shit. By the grace of God we found a place about 30 minutes away from where we lived, so that was great for me. I was ready to start new and get out of that house. The memories were too strong for me there and made living very hard for me. It was hard to move on from everything that went on, being that constant reminders were everywhere. The place was tiny, not like our old house, but honestly at this point I was so fucking grateful to have anything. This house was a piece of shit though. Holes in the ceiling from repairs he never finished, stuff like that. It was a hole, but it was our hole. We would make it work. Lived there for 2 years. It was terrible. I tried my hardest to make it a happy home, but there was just no way. I lost my mom during all of this, mentally. She was not the same person, which made living there with her hard. During the hardest days, our only car got repossessed. I remember specifically that this must be a joke. Laughing hysterically turned into heart-wrenching sobbing. It was too real. I had to quit my job and find one close to home where I could walk to, since we have no car and can't see getting one anytime soon. No public transit where I was living, which sucked. I did that and it was all actually working out fine. The grocery store was right by my work, which was great. February 14th, 2012, we received a letter in the mail from our landlord. Never liked the guy and knew this was not good considering how our life is, haha. We were prepared. Mom read it and landlord told us we need to move because he was tearing down our house along with a few neighbors to build a new housing development. We were so done with life, guys. We had no idea what to do. No place around us were in our price range. We were genuinely stuck. Very long story short, we actually moved back to our original house, the house I grew up in. The house that was put up for foreclosure. Not really sure how my mom did it. TBH, I was very depressed. She was smart not sharing these details with me because I really don't think I could have mentally handled it. Since then, things haven't really gotten better or worse. Brother moved back home and is helping with things. I'm working at the same place. I did get a 2015 Honda Civic, which was huge for us. From here, only way to go is up. Mom ran into more health issues, 100% blocked aorta, and needs major surgery soon. I'm trying to mentally prepare for the worst, but I'm just taking one day at a time. My depression is so very real, and I'm finally taking steps to improve myself. What I've learned is that money really does control a lot of the things you do, but it's your choice to be happy with what you have. I'm very happy right now, considering, and I really wouldn't trade my experiences for the world, because I feel like I can honestly conquer anything I set my mind to. It's just getting there that's hard for me. I apologize that is lengthy and kinda sporadic. I've actually never written down part of my life like that, and, wow. I need a drink, haha. Edit. Wow, the amount of love my inbox has gotten has been overwhelming. Thank you guys so much. I swore this thread was made for me when I saw it this morning, haha. I've been having a rough few weeks and hearing all of these wonderful messages makes me feel like I can get through this week with ease. Edit 2. What the heck, I got gold. Holy crap. I don't even know what to do with it, but I'm so excited. Haha, thank you amazingly kind stranger. Holy shit. This could have been me if my father didn't have life insurance. My mother was sick a lot when I was younger. My dad was the only one who worked, and he made good money. He died when I was a teenager, and then we had no income. But he had a really good life insurance policy. So instead of having to start working, as soon as I was able to support my family, I was able to go to college debt-free. In related news, I've seen 4 different crowdfunding pages cross my Facebook in the last 2 weeks to cover end-of-life expenses, mostly funerals, for friends of friends. People, if you have any dependents at all, anyone who would be stuck with a bill for your funeral, or relies on you to pay any part of their bills, get life insurance. If you're young and healthy, it's very cheap, and it could mean the difference between your loved ones trying to scrape together enough to bury you while grieving your untimely death versus having a financial cushion to help them through the next few months or years after throwing you a baller funeral. Thank you. You literally brought me to tears. I'm very sorry about your dad, but he was a smart man to get good life insurance. I hope everything is going well for you. My aunt married a millionaire right out of high school. Let me just say she has always been crazy. Very beautiful but very crazy. My whole life I just thought she was a lunatic, and then my mom told me as a teenager that at one point my aunt had been very rich because her husband was. Then she found out he was cheating on her, and she burned all of her clothes and jewelry and possessions in a huge fire and divorced him, but refused to take even a penny. I was a baby at the time. The little house she lives in is in bad condition and always has been from my memory. She just sews for a living and is on assistance. She has like 1,000 parrots in her house that she calls her babies. It's very sad. I've got to say, I kind of admire her for not taking anything from her ex. Pride doesn't pay bills or keep your family fed, and she has a lot of hungry beaks to feed. My family was never rich, but when I was little both my parents were employed and were able to support my autistic brother and I. Then my dad lost his job and my mom became the sole breadwinner. We then adopted another kid who also turned out to be on the autism spectrum. My mom was able to make this work for close to 10 years, but in the past 4 months everything has basically fallen apart. We had to move out of my childhood home because it was foreclosed on. I almost had to switch schools during my junior year. I used to have some of the highest grades in my prestigious private school, but they keep falling. My parents talk openly about our financial situation with me, and the stress it causes me makes me so unable to do anything else. All I can think about is how I will ever be able to afford college. So I guess the biggest change has been the intense stress and fear of losing what's left. Get your grades up. That's your job. Those grades will get you into the program/trade that you want. If it stresses you too much, tell your parents to please not talk about it in so much detail. Listen to this advice. I was in a similar situation, but with a single mother. I went from advanced classes to barely making C's in regular classes. I didn't take the SATs and decided to be a mechanic at 17 so I could move out. When work was busy, the money was good for a young kid, but when it was slow, I could barely afford gas. I had to bust my ass through online college after I had my son. It was terrible doing that and working full time. I'm finally in a decent spot not, but I'm a good 8 years behind where I should be in my career, and I'm barely 30. You'll regret it later if you let it affect you now. Gonna be buried, but here is a good long story. From rags to riches to rags to doing okay. I was born in a small town in the south end of my state to a 17-year-old mother. I was born a month after she graduated high school. Was quite the scandal. Dad was of similar age. He ended up getting a job as an EMT. She stayed in the trailer with me. We were dirt fucking poor. When I was about 3 years old, mom decided she'd had enough of my dad working EMT hours, and the only reasonable course of action was to start sleeping around. He found out and left 6 months to the day after my little sister was born. Can't say I blame him much. Finding out your wife is the town bicycle in a small town has to be rough on a man. Then mom met my stepdad. He was a good man, college educated, lived in a big city, and had a decent job. Wasn't rich by any means, but he was in telecom in the 80s, so was on his way up. For the next decade or so, my stepdad busted his ass for his family. 3 more sisters came along, and our family of 7 was doing okay, all crammed into a 3-bedroom house. Lots of sharing rooms and box dinners. Mom stayed at home to raise the kids. We weren't broke anymore, but we weren't doing great. Then stepdad caught a break. Sales engineering slot for a new company. Went from supporting a family of 7 on a meager income to so much money he didn't know what to do with it. He was smart. Saved for a year, then we moved to a giant fuck-off house in the rich part of town. That was my sophomore year of high school. I remember stepdad being so stoked about how much he could do for his family, and he spoiled us. My mom got lavish gifts, beautiful jewelry, clothing. He let her hire a professional decorator for the new giant house. He bought me a car on my 16th birthday, 1986 Jeep Grand Wagoneer. Damn, do I miss that car. He sat me down one day and told me about my college choices. He had set it up so that all I would need to do was pay for food and books every semester. He could handle the tuition of any school in our state. He took my mother on trips to Australia, Paris, Venice, anywhere she wanted to go. It never set in how good I had it. Then my mother decided she didn't enjoy him traveling for work so much, and the only reasonable course of action was to start sleeping around. It was a messy divorce. Mom wanted all the kids. Stepdad had legally adopted first sister and I long ago, and the giant fuck-off house. Pretty much everything. It lasted about a year. Stepdad was still paying a mortgage in the old house he hadn't gotten to sell. Yet because my mother moved into it and destroyed it, ended up somehow that my dad got all the kids, but still had to pay my mother alimony, and she didn't have to pay child support, likely due to the fact that she refused to get a job. He had to take a significant pay cut to be home more with my sisters. Turns out during all the fighting over belongings and stupid shit, my stepdad had pretty much been cleaned out. He had nothing, and was back to living paycheck to paycheck just to feed my sisters. I was still living at home, but had gotten a job at a pizza joint, and was making enough to handle my own basic needs. That college fund had gotten handed over to my mother somehow, and she blew it all on booze and expensive dates with her new boyfriend. But wait, it gets better. After about a year, my stepdad meets a lady and decides to marry her. She has her own mess of kids, and my stepdad tells me that there isn't a place for me in their new home. I've got 2 months to move, so I move in with my mother into a 2-bedroom house with her and her dickhead boyfriend. I live in the garage. My car dies, and I don't have the money to fix it, so I walk to work. Finally get a full-time job working overnights at a grocery store. It's enough to trade my Jeep for a shitty Gia Metro. I do that for a couple years, then end up in it, doing help desk stuff for a development company. 10 years later, I'm still in it, making okay money. Have a family of my own. that I can support without too much strife and things are going well. The hardest thing for me going from easy living to living off $5.15 an hour. Being hungry and not being able to do anything about it. TL. Doctor, my mother is a whore. Sorry to hear this, but glad you are doing better. Still keep in contact with siblings or dad/stepdad. Don't talk much to my oldest sister. She kinda turned into my mother. Younger 3 are all doing well, and I see him a few times a year. BO dad passed a few years back, saw him a few times in my 20s, but that was it. Died of a heart attack in a horse barn somewhere in North Texas is all I know. Stepdad and I repaired our relationship pretty well. We actually just went shooting last weekend. Went from being middle class to poor to upper middle class. My brother got hit by a car when I was in high school, was in a coma for several months, and needed to be cared for 100% permanently after that. My family slowly went bankrupt and my parents tried to counter it by opening up a business, which failed due to being cut off from loan access during the stock market crash. They lost their house, and I had to fend for myself. I tried to go to college and work at the same time, but I ended up getting kicked out for bad grades and lost my job when I turned into kind of a shitbag. I ended up being homeless and became a traveling salesman and was kind of just barely making it for a while till I had a bad sales month and was about to be homeless again. I said fuck it and joined the army. When I was 22 I did 3 years there, paid off all my debt and got out and got a civil engineering degree with the GI Bill. Now I have a very high paying job and will probably do well for the foreseeable future. Good for you, man. That should occur as an option to a lot more people, I'd hope. It worked great for me, but I'm still hesitant to recommend to many people because it didn't work out for a lot of the people I served with. My family was nowhere close to be rich, but was way above average. Like if the average income was $2,000 a month back then, he was making 10 times that number by himself. One day, my grandparents ran into trouble with justice. I won't get into the details as it can be another 3-page story for another time. It was a HMM, let's call financial crime. Anyways, unlike here in Canada, my motherland is a place where, if someone is in trouble, your whole family is done for it. Fast forward about a year, dad and mom somehow managed to immigrate to Canada. I was 6 back then. All they had was $4,500 or CAD, I can't remember correctly, but it's about the same, that were in their pockets, and coming into a brand new country that they had very little knowledge about. They had their high school English and that was about it. Oh, and maybe their mechanical engineering and computer science bachelor diplomas that were not even recognized here. Since I was only 6 I can't really remember much about changes/adjustments. To me it was mostly having donated second-hand toys instead of having the best set of Legos that my parents could find around. However, here are some situations that I still remember and found super interesting. I still remember that my parents were going through fires every week, and I remember that my dad once told my mom that we can't afford the $1.29/lb meat because our budget's limit is $0.99/lb. I can still remember us 3 walking 2 good extra kilometers to go to a cheaper grocery store because my parents wanted to save a few dollars from bus money. On our way back, we were super exhausted because of the heavy juices and milk that we just sat down on the grass and had some juice and cookies that we just bought. We were heavily helped by the multiple food banks that offered their help to us. I even remember that I got a nice set of Lego, brand new one of like 800 pieces, which was too complicated for me at the time on Christmas edit. I just wanted to add that this is the main reason that I'm always trying to donate a few dollars worth of food to food banks once in a while. I might not even be here if it wasn't because of the work of these volunteers and of the donations. The last thing that I remembered is that on my 7th birthday, my birthday celebration was a Big Mac combo. My parents debated for a while whether to have it or not. After all, the $6 or $7 worth meal was my lunch money of over a week. It was a $/meal at the school's cafeteria thanks to YMCA covering the rest. I can't remember, but there is a possibility that my dad didn't have anything at McDonald's that day and only watched me. Have to comment. It had about my mom. My mom was from a wealthy family, some part is still. They were government officials, lawyers, and had owned many lands. In Kazakhstan during the Soviet rule, we were pre-Republic Kazakhstan of the Soviet. My mom had everything given to her. They had drivers, maids, chefs and cleaners to do everything for them. After the Soviet broke up, and the new currency, they lost all their money, since they never had investment, and had lodged it all in the banks and the banks crashed. New currency, it was worth few cents, and they lost their fortune quick. Right now the hardest thing for my mom is that right now she's a maid to some well-off family, and she cries to herself to sleep. She has 5 kids and can't afford to look after us, but does so somehow finds out, yeah, my English isn't the best. I apologize as I'm not from English speaking country. Basically, new currency equals exchange was worthless. Lost their fortune and lost everything, except the family house, and now she struggles to feed us, look after us and herself. But she's doing a good job, and I'm blessed and thankful for her edit. Some part of the family still holds their fortune as they kept their jobs as government officials. My grandfather, brother's son side of the family still pretty much wealthy. They go holidays every midterm and own many lands in Turkey especially.
Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. If you enjoyed it, give me a like and press the subscribe button below. More videos coming soon. Take care and stay safe.